a rushing river of rubble.
First, there was a lot of kegs, a lot of like propane tanks and things, and then it was shipping containers and vehicles, and then it was whole buildings.
Chris Faber took this video from his Biltmore Village apartment on the 3rd floor.
It just kept coming. So yeah, I mean, I was really more concerned about something hitting us again like that.
The water moving so fast.
It's gonna hit the pool though right here.
It shredded walls like paper.
Holy, that would have hit the apartment below us. Ours would have just fallen, or mine would have just fallen into the river.
Back to the mountains, where remarkable stories of survival are now being shared days after Helene wreaked havoc in North Carolina. But one Pageland man's efforts to help are now the source of controversy. He flew his own chopper on his own dime to help stranded victims, but that man says he abandoned his rescue missions after a fire official threatened to have him thrown in jail. Well, that man now wants answers and turned to Queen City News Chief Investigator Jody Barr to help figure out what went wrong here.
After Hurricane Helene ripped through western North Carolina mountain towns, trapping thousands of residents, South Carolina pilot Jordan Stidham volunteered his time in his plane to rescue stranded victims and pass out supplies. But on the second day of his mission, when Jordan started pulling people to safety, he received a chilling warning. A Lake Lure fire official told him if he continued to help people, he will be arrested. Now, they're in the middle of a disaster. Why would someone try to stop him from saving lives? We're going to get into the story, but first, take a second to make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the notification bell for all updates. If you're a new subscriber, I want to hear from you below in the comments. So go ahead and drop new subscriber below.
This is the original post that I was reading when I decided to go up and help. It's a long post, but she's saying that her kids and family and animals are trapped. No way out, no supplies, and the only way in or out is accessible by helicopter. Limited cell service and no water since Friday morning. I thought I have a helicopter and maybe I can help.
So this man right here, his name is Jordan Stidham from South Carolina. He was scrolling on social media, saw a post from a Hurricane Helene victim, a woman trapped with her family. They had kids, no water for days, and limited cell service. And the only way to access the area was via helicopter. So Jordan, he's sitting there, he's seeing this, he's got a helicopter. So he's like, hey, I can go and help them. And this was another area, Black Mountain. You have a bunch of other mountain towns destroyed by Helene as well. And here you have a man being a good Samaritan. He's donating his time and his resources to help out.
Jordan Stidham piled food and water into his helicopter Saturday and headed up toward Banner Elk, the only way through a mountain gap in Lake Lure.
This is the mountain valley that you would have to fly to get to Black Mountain, where we were escorting people out. This is a mountain range, and this is a mountain range. The only place to fly through with bad visibility, low cloud coverage, is Lake Lure.
The cries for help from people stranded without food, water, or electricity hit social media soon after the flooding last Friday.
But my parents are stuck there. Their address is Banner Elk. They are in the first condo. If you receive this, please give me a call back. Thank you.
Stidham's phone started lighting up on Saturday with people begging for help.
I could hear the desperation in her voice. This is multiple phone calls I've received like this, voicemails, text messages, and you could hear people desperate for help.
Wow. And here's another woman. She's calling for her parents stuck in their condo for days without help. Imagine not being able to help your aging parents. You call 911, no one is answering. They're trapped in a place with no way in and no way out. This is crazy.
Stidham and his son rescued 4 people on Saturday and spent the night in a nearby pilot's lounge, then decided to fly again Sunday morning.
I spoke with my son, which is my co-pilot. I said, hey, do you want to go back out and try to help today? And his response was, there's so many messages, I don't think we can't not go help.
Stidham and his son were headed up to Black Mountain. Flight tracking shows no flight restrictions in place Saturday or Sunday morning when Stidham flew through the Lake Lure Gap. But that was all about to change. The Stidhams spotted an older couple waving for help, then landed in what's left of their driveway.
Hey, I want you to let me get in. You step out and go out, help her in, put her bag in the back, get her strapped in. I'm gonna take her down, come back. I'll take him, I'll come back, and then I'll get you, okay?
I originally left my son, co-pilot, on the side of the mountain. It was it was kind of unstable, so I didn't want to put more weight in the helicopter to lift back off. So I left my son with the other victim, and I was just going to take one person down at the time. And you could hear me in the video talking through with the victims and with my son what we were going to do.
Man, this was hard, and an example of having to make tough decisions really fast. The rescue pilot didn't want to risk all of their lives by piling them all in the helicopter. You also have to remember he had supplies in there too to hand out to people. So he decided to take them one at a time. He took one victim, the wife, leaving his son behind with the other victim, her husband. Then the plan was to come back for the second victim and his son. Well, at least that was the plan.
3 minutes away, Sidham spotted a group of rescuers just down the river. He landed and found someone in charge.
Told him my background experience, law enforcement, firefighting, pilot. He immediately started helping with coordination. He gave me radio frequencies to coordinate with them on, set up a landing area for me to come back with the other victim. And in the middle of the whole conversation and then blocking the road off, I was greeted by the at that time I didn't know, but Lake Lure fire chief or assistant chief maybe, and he shut down the whole operation. So at that point I felt like the conversation wasn't going any further, and again he asked me to leave, and I said, hey, I have no problem getting out of your area. If that's what you want us to do, we'll leave, no issue. At that point I asked him, what was the reason I had to leave them there, and he said, again, you're interfering with my operation. I just need you to get out of the area. I said, sir, I don't know where you were trained at, but I know how my training is, and I'm not going to leave personnel behind. I'm going back to get my co-pilot. He said, if you turn around and go back up the mountain, you're going to be arrested.
Here's the assistant fire chief that he's talking about, the moron who sabotaged this rescue mission and ordered this volunteer rescue pilot to leave victims behind, trapped in the mountains, desperately waving for help. A man donating his time and resources with law enforcement experience. He's out there trying to help these people stranded in areas like Black Mountain, Lake Lure, only to be threatened with jail and told to stop helping. Now, that's insane, first of all, but even when he agreed to go home with his helicopter, the fire official told him he couldn't go back to help the other victim and was even told to leave his own son behind. Like, are you crazy? Why did he tell him to do that?
I said, well, sir, I'm going back to get my co-pilot. I don't know what to tell you. And he said, I'm letting you know. And at that point, he waved for 2 law enforcement officers to come over and told me that again, if I go back up the mountain, I would be arrested.
He flew the 3-minute trip back, picked up his son, and left the woman's husband behind.
I'm sure he was flooded with emotions and trying to rescue other people, and I just felt that it was best at the time to leave. So I did follow his instructions, and I had a conversation with the female victim before I left, apologizing and explaining. She was standing there. She heard the whole conversation, and they were both very, very surprised, very upset. The husband, as I was leaving off of the side of the mountain, at that point, separated from his wife, he was upset.
Imagine the wife being saved and she's hearing an official giving direct orders to leave her husband behind, although you had somebody there willing to rescue him. Then imagine being the husband. He's waiting, standing in what was left of their property, a piece of their driveway, being told that he had to be left behind all alone. Of course, he sacrificed and allowed his wife to go first, but can you imagine what it was like realizing that he had to be left there, unsure if anybody will come back or when they will come back, and will he survive until they do? But that Lake Lure assistant fire chief is a devil. This guy should be arrested right now.
I can only imagine.
Sidham and his nearly 1,400 flight hours turned his chopper around and headed back to South Carolina, passing people waving for help along the way.
As I was actually leaving to go back to get my son, the original chief or captain that I spoke to, his crew and himself, they came back over and said, hey man, we can't tell you to go get the victim. We can't even ask you to go get the victim, but we can tell you if you come back with the victim, we'll have you a designated landing spot, and they won't. We'll make sure they don't come over here.
So there was no flight restriction when you went in?
No flight restriction when I went in. It went in place 20 or 30 minutes after the confrontation with Mr.
You feel like that was coincidental, or do you think that was because of what happened?
I don't think it can be coincidental when there has not been one in place the day before doing rescue operations, the night of, the morning of, that took place after our altercation. I think there would have never been a TFR put in place had we not had that conversation.
So, no restrictions the day before. He and his son came all the way from their home in South Carolina. They rescued 4 people. Then no restrictions on the second day. That's before he went to rescue a wife and her husband. Then all of a sudden he had a conversation with this man here. 20 minutes later, the whole rescue was sabotaged. It was this assistant fire chief who put restrictions on the area.
If I had to do it over again, I would have stopped and I would have rescued as many people until they decided they were going to arrest me.
Well, for now, we've chosen not to name that Lake Lure fire official because communications in and out of that town are still difficult. We want to include his side in this story, and if and when he responds to our messages, we will include that.
Nah, forget that. The assistant fire chief that did all this is Chris Melton. His boss is Fire Chief Dustin Waycaster. Everybody should contact the North Carolina State Police, federal law enforcement in North Carolina, and tell them to go arrest this devil. Yeah, and file complaints against him for what he did at the fire department. This guy should be arrested, not protected. And I would really like to know what's his excuse. Somebody's got to answer for this. Did he get orders from a higher authority to terminate the rescue mission? Or did he do this all on his own? Nah, I don't want him talking to the media that's protecting him. We need to get federal agents in his life right now, and he should be prosecuted for what he's done. Let's go ahead and get the conversation started. Let me know what you think about this below. Special thank you to Roland C. I appreciate you, Roland, for all of your support. If you want to show your support for the channel too, you have to use PayPal for now. The link is below. Ladies, fellas, want a balanced analysis, want the truth from a woman's perspective? Then you're going to want to subscribe to this channel and don't forget to like and share.